tell you what.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Chondro Lounge. This is episode number 16, right, Lucas?
Yeah, 16.
It's funny, we said that like 4 seconds ago, but I try to act like
just
it. I can't. I couldn't fake it. Sorry, guys. I had no idea what episode it was. Lucas gave me the answer. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode, just me and Lucas tonight. I'm going to be discussing Husbandry 101. Typically, Lucas is always the one pitching these ideas because I think it's boring until we're like 5 minutes into it, and then I'm talking about green trees again,
and then we have good combos.
Yeah, and then I'm remembering stuff.
Yeah.
Do you
remember the last episode that we did kind of like this? It was like import versus CBB, whatever we did.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about like we were going to do some intro, like just some basic husbandry stuff and breaking it down. Keep it simple, stupid type of stuff. And there's a lot of people on the comments and feedbacks that said that they really wanted those type of episodes. And, for me, not being heavily, like really deep in the Chondro community just yet, because I haven't, bred yet and all that good stuff. But I know that like my circle of like retic people and everything, we got retic people converting to Chondro people left and right. And so, these type of episodes I think are valuable.
Hey, did I tell you that I had a great feeding session yesterday with the new clutch?
No, how'd it go?
16 out of 19.
Okay, great. That's actually really good.
5, I didn't know if they were going to take. 2 of them took it no problem. The other 3 hadn't eaten on their own, or either have never eaten on their own, and they're almost 4 months old.
Okay.
Or, excuse me. Or have like they've only eaten once, and the 2 that ate once ate October 2nd by themselves.
Okay, damn.
And I just thought this new method up, and all 3 bit wrapped and ate on their own.
Okay, you can't be throwing out like I thought about this new method.
I can't say it. I can't say it. I haven't perfected it yet. I cannot say. I'll tell you privately.
What are you doing? I mean,
possibly are you giving out bad information, and I don't want to do that. I'm in the middle of figuring something out, and I'm going to put a halt on telling everybody, that I'm feeding, very often large prey items when I'm, breeding and waiting, through follicular development, waiting for them to go off food.
You play the political game here.
I don't, yeah, because guess what? Everything I've said in the past, I may have been about 75% right.
Okay.
I'm noticing a pattern with something with my females and talking. Mike Majoris is on MJ's podcast right now.
Yep.
So I apologize. I wasn't going to make it. They were filming this, but I was talking to him before, and it was like an aha moment. I was sitting in bed, and I'm like, holy shit. I said the bad word in the first 5 minutes. Are we going to get kicked off YouTube?
Nah, you're good. It was the S.
All right. Yeah. So I don't, dude, I'm learning every day. So I don't know what to do. I don't want to give out bad information, but
that's fair.
Hold up on packing those really big meals so often into your females. And I'm trying to figure something out. I'll tell you exactly.
You said hold off on that because a couple days ago, I just pulled a chuck. And
don't be as aggressive. Don't be as aggressive. So maybe space it out, or okay, if you're in the middle of it and you're following what I'm saying, what I'm doing with my female right now is because I'm feeding a small rat to an animal, it's 500 to 600 grams around I check my feeding notes, 10 to 12 days. I wanted to do 7, but now it's like 10-ish is what I've been hovering around. That it almost seems like, remember last with Deep Blue when I was like, I put a meal down her throat when she was really reluctant to take it. And it's almost like I set her back in her cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. See, I'm going to sound like an idiot, but I don't know. I'm not saying I am currently looking at the possibility of a suspicion that I have that maybe me feeding such large prey items so often, every time she eats it, she's huge, and then she poops, and then she's normal size, and then like 2 days later she starts growing follicles again. Am I delaying the growth of the follicles by putting such a large prey item in her stomach that they literally physically can't grow? So what if I go back to what the normal people do, like Patrick and stuff, and feed smaller prey items more often, or as often as I want, to allow for the extra room inside the body cavity for follicle growth? It almost seems like she keeps on getting to a certain point, and then I feed her, and then she's restarting.
Fair. I mean, that's a good observation. I would tend to say that follicles build in the lower third, whereas that big, large bump is right at the midsection typically.
So, yeah, but the consistent feeding, she's moving fecal matter so quickly.
Yeah, she's moving it down. Yeah, I could see that. Well, I just gave my Aru a medium rat. She's got a nice lump in her, and but I guarantee you she'll probably go into a shed, and but I'm waiting for that lump to kind of go down, and then I'm going to throw the male in there. I also fed the male too,
So what I'm thinking about that I would like to do, if it would work out while I'm looking at all this, is I would like to continue on when I'm pairing and trying to get her to build the follicles to get a little bit larger. And once I start to see that swell, I will taper the food, the prey items smaller and smaller to allow for those follicles to grow. Because she looked normal today, and tonight I don't know if I sent you pictures or video. She's going nuts. She's all like twisted, contorted, her body's swollen, and
good stuff.
She hasn't gone off food yet, so she obviously is not going into an ovulation, or I don't think so. Yeah. She could have fed up to ovulation, but I don't think she is.
Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next-level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry.
So, are the follicles growing that quickly because they're coming back to the size that they were? Were they pushed or deflated, or did they shrink down themselves to, I don't know, aid digestion or make room? I don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm in the middle of it. So, like, you got to be a fool first, right, before you actually learn something.
Right, exactly. And right now you're kind of just observing and taking notes.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I don't know. We have this thing, and there's a fair amount of influence that we have on people, and I just don't want to give out bad information, because I'll have a thought like this and I'll investigate it for 2-3 weeks, and I just realize it's bullshit, and then it would have wasted my time if I said it. So,
but it's good critical thinking, though. Like I think that sharing these thoughts as the thoughts are happening, as you're forming hypotheses, I think it's valuable to listeners because it encourages them to start to look and observe and think that way, right? So I feel like you not sharing that is also like you're stripping away people an opportunity to be able to actually like view things from a investigative or scientific perspective of trying to and at the end of the day, even if what you're saying is incorrect, you are still talking about some valid points in the anatomy and physiology of these animals that people need to understand when it comes to reproducing them.
You know what? Screw it. I'll tell you the pinky thing. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll tell you the baby snake thing. So I don't know how consistent it can be. So it's worked. It did work for me. As soon as I tried, it worked for me a little bit when I kind of did it the previous feeding trial. And then I went, 100% in. I said, I'm going to try it this time exactly the way I think I should do it. So long story short, and this is only me playing around. This is not me giving any solid advice, but it worked for me. So it's one extra thing you could try. I had an idea. So long story short, I cut a chicken gizzard sliver about 3/4 of an inch long and about the width of like a piece of wet spaghetti, or maybe even wider. I'm cutting them in all kinds of different shapes. It doesn't matter. I'm making little spears. I'm making really flat, floppy ones for the snakes that are striking to the side. So anyway, I'm making little circle ones or cubes, and I'm nicking them with the tip of a knife and making all these little fingers on it. So it's like Velcro. So as soon as they bite it, it gets stuck in their mouth.
Yeah, they can't spit it out.
I'm using these chicken gizzard slivers, but tiny, tiny ones that are probably, they're not a good meal at all. They're only to start the animal off. Now, hear me out. I thought this was crazy, but it worked. Like 2 weeks in a row and several times each week. There's actually 3 ways you can get a meal in these things without touching them on the perch. Like they're on the perch. But they have to strike.
Right.
They have to be a biter or striker. I am cutting chicken gizzard slivers small enough so that they are getting stuck in the mouth. And it's not big and heavy and awkward where they're like bending over. It's too easy for them to swallow it. They don't even try to spit it. They bite it and they get it in their mouth and they think about it and they're like, oh, this is tiny. I could totally eat this. And they just swallow it.
Which is helping them start to develop that motion of being able to swallow by themselves.
Well, listen to this. Listen to this. I just set my first beer for the night. So as they are swallowing it, just finishing up, I took fuzzies. And these are snakes that hadn't eaten on their own in months, dude. They're not like 2 of them are pretty skinny, and I'm worried about it. I took a fuzzy, a small fuzzy, and as it was finishing off the chicken gizzard and it was going down its throat, I just slid the fuzzy's nose right into it. It didn't just eat it. It wrapped it upside down and swallowed it. I have a picture I will send. I don't think you can't put pictures on the screen. Did I send you on Instagram? Can you?
Yeah, if you send me it on Instagram, I can pull it up. All
right, hold on. Let me send this to you. It's what I think is happening is the snake is almost in an instinctive, like jump starts them to be in hunt mode.
Yeah.
And okay, so the ones that won't bite it and wrap it and put it upside down, which happened with all my 3 yesterday, some of them you can just slip it in their mouth and they go right and they will eat the pinky or the fuzzy. And if they won't eat that, then you can try another little gizzard sliver and keep on popping them in their mouth, and they'll just keep on eating it like a worm. Like you just keep on connecting the pieces. Or if all else fails, you can make specially shaped chicken gizzard slivers. And if they will only bite and strike it and you can't get another one in there after they're already swallowing, you could just get 3 stuck in their mouth and you don't even touch them on the perch. You just have to have time to let them bite.
Yeah.
And get stuck in their mouth and push the drawer and come back in 25 minutes.
I'll say with some of my retics that are being stubborn feeders that strike, some of the successful first meals that they took was because they bit it. And when they pulled back, they didn't open up their mouth enough and they accidentally drug it like in their teeth. They got caught in their teeth and then that encouraged them to wrap. So yeah. Are you sending me that message?
Yeah. Sorry. I got to go through my messages. My messages are blowing up. I don't even know that we talk on Instagram. There you go. There we go. I got that one. So that I actually, because you know how detailed I am, I outlined the pinky's head and then also the chicken gizzard sliver. And you can see where it still has the gizzard sliver hanging out of its mouth. This one was hanging out sideways.
Yeah. Yeah, look at it right there.
Yeah, so the blue is the chicken gizzard sliver. And then you could see the tip of the pinky is only actually really hooked onto the bottom teeth, but it ate it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
That snake only took 1 meal in 4 months, and it was on October 2nd.
Yeah, that's money right there.
3 of them. bit wrapped and swallowed, I was shocked. So
no, that's huge, man. Congrats.
Thank you. So anybody out there, see if you can get something stuck in their mouths, and if they swallow it, and keep on going, because they're in hunt mode.
Yeah. No. I think that's a great idea. Anytime that you can get find another way to trick them into getting them to eat is huge. Yeah, I mean, as far as Chondro updates, man, I really don't have much other than I did 3 pairings, right? I've done 3 pairings so far, and the first 2 went really well. The last one, there wasn't much activity, but I pulled him out sooner, fed her this medium rat, and then we'll get back to the drawing board and just it's a waiting game at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep feeding, keep pairing, and then
and it's cold. It's cold here. I'm letting my garage dip down to 76 at night. So
yeah, as long as you got those cameras on there and just observe her behavior, you'll know.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll see her do it. She'll do something different.
Yeah, it's the last thing I do before I go to bed. Just stare at it.
Yeah. I like it right after the lights go off is when my female leaves the perch and stretches out and does all her funny stuff.
Right. No, I mean if it's crazy. Most people think oh, Chondro's green snake that perches on a stick, but man, if you watch them at night, they're active as hell.
Yeah. Especially the males.
All right, so Chuck, let's jump a little bit into this husbandry 101. We don't have to beat this over the head over and over again. I think that we just need to kind of cover the basis and kind of talk about our experience as we in this aspect of the husbandry. But I'm curious, first things first, let's talk about temperature and humidity. Well, first off, green tree pythons in general, in my opinion, right? I've said this 100 times on this podcast already. Not as fragile as people think. However, they are an animal that requires you to meet their husbandry parameters, right? So it is important that you are within the parameters of what is good for these animals. Unlike retics and other snakes, you can keep them hotter, you can keep them cooler, and they're other snakes are very good at surviving neglect, right? But chondros, I don't think function in that way. So
what kind of neglect though? They kind of like to be left alone, right?
Well, they do, but you got
attention to detail.
Yeah, you got to give them fresh water. You got to make sure that their temperatures. I mean, you'll kill a chondro if you have a hot spot at 92 degrees, right? So it's one of those things where there's a little room for error, right? But the margin of success is smaller than a lot of other species. And I think that's where back in the day they got this reputation of being very finicky and fragile and everything, is because imports, number one, and two, people are still kind of learning. But in my opinion, their husbandry is just about as easy as it gets. So let's get into temperature, right? So you keep gradient, right? I can speak from the ambient aspect, but you keep gradient. So what do you do as far as temperature wise?
12 hours of daytime heat at 84 to 77, 78. If you're talking hot side, cold side. Are you all right? Did we lose him?
I choked.
I was going to say, don't make me do another one by myself.
Oh my gosh. It's a good thing these are pre-recorded and not live.
Jesus.
That was amazing.
Oh my God. I thought I lost you.
Give me a second. I still got a couple coughs. Ooh.
I'll start off. All right. So what, 16 minutes or whatever. I'll start off with talking about temperature if you want to cut this out.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. All right. I think I got the last one out.
All right. You ready?
Yeah. Beer went down the wrong tube. Go for it.
All right, so my temperatures are 12 hours of daytime. The hot side's 84. The cool side's around 77, 78. And then at nighttime for 12 hours, it drops down to the hot side being around 78, 79. And then that cool side is, I think it's 72 or something like that, because my room ambient is always pinned at 70 to 71.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, as far as hotspots go, like I've always heard for chondros, generally speaking, anywhere between like 83, 86, but the vast majority of people we've had on, I've heard them talk about hotspots at like 84. Um, and again, with most python species, heat is going to kill your snake quicker than cooler temperatures.
Yeah, they got to be able to escape it. And my babies are kept a couple degrees hotter on the back wall. And my imports that I acclimate are kept differently during the quarantine process.
More heat, right?
Yeah, about a degree more on the hot side with no night drop, just so that they're, they can seek out a little bit more heat just in case they have a RI coming on. They can, warm up and fight it off themselves naturally.
Yeah, I think that and again, when we talk about like a tropical species or we talk about like a forest species like chondros, I think historically we've just we've overheated a lot of these animals. 83, 84 seems to be a really good spot to keep them at. My ambient, again, no hot spots at all for any of my snakes, my chondros. I'm keeping daytime high 84. Sometimes it peaks at 85, but it typically only touches it for a little bit. And then during the summer and warmer months, nighttime low of about 80, 81 degrees. And then during the winter, I let it drop down to 74. So,
yeah, they can handle short-term overnight temperature drops a lot better than they can handle temp spikes that are extreme or long-term lower temps.
Yeah, no, I absolutely like, and as a matter of fact, I mean, when it comes to like the breeding aspect, and again, that's not what this episode is for, but from an ambient perspective, it's absolutely like you got to give them that nighttime drop. That's that trigger for follicular development. So, but I mean, I've been keeping my retics like that for 3 years, and they're from the same general area. And there's a couple other people that kind of gave me their parameters that keep ambient set up. So when it comes to temperature, what are like different heating methods and things that you can do to heat up? I know that there's back heat, right? There's heat that's coming from the top of the enclosure. So go into that a little bit, Chuck.
Yeah, I'm just going to do, I guess with this episode, I'm usually really detailed and stuff like that. But this is going to be one of those episodes where we'll cover the basics. And if anybody has any questions they want us to dig into maybe on the next episode or follow up like a 102, put that in the comment section or comment on social media. Heating methods, typically, I mean, there's a million ways to do it, but typically most commonly seen would be heat tape on the back wall, a radiant heat panel up on the lid or the ceiling of the enclosure. Some people are using, supplemental radiant heat panels when they're not actually available and getting chicken brooder plates from Amazon. And then a lot of people are utilizing ambient to heat them.
Right. I will say there are some like pros and cons to different heating styles. I've heard some people say that like radiant heat panels can dry out enclosures fairly quickly. I would say if you could, I would say like using lighting as a method of your heat source is probably the quickest way to dry out the enclosure on an animal that needs a decent amount of humidity. And we'll talk about humidity here in a second. Radiant heat panels, I don't think I never had an issue when I did use them in gradient on like super drying things out, but I've always used the bedding. Like I've always used some form of bedding. And then I haven't had to use them with the chondros, but what's your experience with your heat panels in regards to like it drying out the enclosure?
I have a pretty bad track record with having good sheds. I usually have to heavily mist my animals down while they're in shed just to get it to, come off in one piece or a couple big pieces. I think that has a lot to do with the HVAC system in my house and where I live. It's going to be 6 degrees next week, I think. So
yeah,
heat's constantly running, even though the HVAC is cut off from that room with the heat going in. There's still some sort of, seepage from that door and the heat rising because it's on the top floor. So I noticed even my new clutch, like a couple, I always try to send pictures to my customers, and man, when they go into shed, they get really crinkly, and they got sopping wet paper towels on the ground. I do miss them. It's just sometimes like
they're just gonna dry.
They can sit on a tabletop while you're doing a feeding session for an hour, and their skin gets a little funky.
Right. Right.
And I'm regularly changing waters every 5 to 7 days, misting them down so they can drink it off their body and their coils. And I don't want to get a humidifier for my room, but I don't know what sort of options I'm left with.
So a lot of people don't like the humidifier option because most of the humidifiers out there, they release a mist, right? And that can build up.
Yeah, I don't want that.
But the one that I have doesn't release a mist.
Yeah, but isn't yours like more expensive than my temp gun?
About the same price, $500.
Yeah,
but there's other ones that are probably only $140 that also do the same thing, evaporative.
Yeah, well, it's not fun. I'd rather buy another Predator camera.
Hey, I get it.
It's a purchase that I don't want to make. God, I got my cart full for stuff I don't want to buy for these things, and it's like $500.
Yeah, I got a list of a bunch of shit that I want to get, need to get, and haven't got.
Yeah, I'm about to I got to buy it too tonight. So
right, but let me talk about probe placement real quick, because I think that's an important part when it comes to the husbandry of these animals and where you're placing the probe. Because if you put the probe in an area that's not, number one, not secure, number two, just the wrong area, you could be, your thermostat can your heat source can vary greatly at different times during the day. So I know I'm curious, Chuck, where do most people, like on racks, right? So on a rack system where it's back heat, where do people generally put the probe?
The probe's going to be taped, or my probes are taped onto the heat tape, onto the actual black filament, the heat producing. You tape the probe to the hottest portion of the heat tape so that you don't kill your animals. And then you run a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or temp gun the back wall, and you run that rack for a couple weeks, daytime, nighttime, check it a few times a day, and monitor your temps. And your temperature on your thermostat, say on my baby racks, it's set at 93 to achieve temperatures between 83 and 87 on the back wall. It's one is a single piece of heat tape with 12 tubs, and one is two pieces of heat tape with 15 tubs. Yeah, they're not all going to be within the same degree. It just doesn't happen. You got 3 tiers. Heat collects differently in that stuff. The stuff on the bottom right, it's going to be different than the top left. So just make sure the animal has at least 83, 84 to access on those hatchling racks. Don't exceed the back wall to 88 or anything like that. Right. But if that's what has to happen to get, the remaining few that are in the lower temp range to 82, 83, maybe not put a snake in that tub, or make sure you tape a Govee or temp receiver to the front of the enclosure to make sure that snake can escape that heat to about a mid 70s range if they're going up to that kind of temp on the back. But you shouldn't have those types of issues if you're using, heat tape. Even quality stuff is dirt cheap. So don't skimp on your heating. Don't skimp on heating or heating, especially heating control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the last thing is cost. It doesn't mean buy the most expensive thing, just buy the most tried and true thing that other keepers and breeders are using, even if it's a cheap ink bird for $40 or $50 from Amazon. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, you brought up a good point, that a lot of people who get snakes or reptiles for the first time, it drives them crazy, right? A lot of people will be like, hey, I set up my thermostat at 86 degrees, but my temperatures are reading 92, or my temperatures are reading 74, right? And it's what the temperature on the thermostat does not matter. You have to use a secondary method of measuring the inside of the tub or the enclosure in order to get the heat. Like for me, I had some thermostats that were set to 98 to achieve a hotspot of 88. This is with my retics. I had one thermostat where, because of the part of the room it was in, I had to set to 102 to get it to 88. And like Chuck said, it's really important that you monitor the temperatures during the daytime highs and nighttime lows of the room to make sure it's within range. And if you're someone who needs things to be exact, heating is going to drive you crazy with heat tape, because it's never going to, like Chuck said, man, you'll have a row that's at 84 degrees and few rows down, it's 82. So again, that's why I talked about earlier with these animals. There's a comfortable range that you just need to know about with heat. For me, it's like 83 to 86. It's probably what I would say.
Yeah, and do not drive yourselves crazy, because I did it before, and I learned not to. The instruments you're using to measure the temperatures inside of the enclosures are not properly calibrated. They weren't calibrated in a laboratory. Even my heat gun, I think, has a plus or minus accuracy rating of 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. That's significant. That's pretty big. And my temp gun is a Jeep, right? It's pretty much some of the best stuff you can buy, and it's still 2.7 degrees. Now, what's that Tech City off Amazon for $12.96?
Plus or minus 5?
Yeah, so have a couple different things. Get yourself, there's a great Govee 3-pack. If you want to reach out to me, I'll send you what I got. It's their Wi-Fi. They're all individual receivers. They have a Wi-Fi gateway. You can pick them up and put them wherever you want. I use them all the time to I just talk, like they're, I don't know, they're the size of half a matchbox. I toss them inside the lay box when I'm setting up for laying.
I use a sensor push system, and the reason why is because their most expensive sensor is, I think it's the calibration differential is like 0.4 to 0.6 degrees.
Yeah, right? They're good. They're better than Govee, from what I understand.
But they are expensive.
They're a little bit less cost effective. But I got everything on Govee, which sucks. Like I have, I forget lighting. How many temperature.
Do you have Govee lighting? Oh no, you don't. You use.
Dude, I have everything. My kid's tortoise light is on Govee timers. I have Govee light bulbs. I have Govee smart plugs all over my house to shut my kids' TVs off at like a certain time and turn them on another time. I don't even know how many Govee temperature hygrometers inside the snake room. I have the Govee light bulbs in the snake room. I can turn it on and off from my phone.
They need to sponsor the Amacone family.
Yeah, right. And I go into my snake room and I turn it on the light, and I already have it preset to red or green. So I walk in if I got to grab something, and I light the whole room up red or green just to not disturb the snakes, or if I got to work in there, if I want to do some nighttime feeding trials with the babies. Right. But like Inkbird has this stuff too. Like I just got the wireless Wi-Fi meat probes for smoking meats and stuff like that for your grill.
Yep.
I just got an Inkbird one, dude.
No, so that's actually what Inkbird specializes in. Is like Inkbird originally was all about thermometers, and then they went over to the thermostat.
I'm floored. Like it was some crazy sale on Black Friday. It was like $50, and I got 2 meat probes, and it's pretty cool. Like sends me like notifications on my phone because my grill's Wi-Fi, but I can change the temp with my grill and all that, but the temperature meat probes for the grill just suck. And it always goes offline and stuff. So I just set the grill up, and then I just did this Inkbird stuff. I can go to work, and like 40 miles away, I can see what temperature my meat is.
That's awesome. That's freaking bad.
Yeah, it's different for $50, $60. And I got a bunch of their 2-zone thermostats from Amazon, the little black ones. Mm-hmm. They're great for $40, man, for my quarantine setups. Oh my God. I would use them, for anything but breeding or incubation. I would trust them, with my adult animals. They're really good. And they got stainless steel probes. And
you want to know what's funny is a lot of the Inkbird thermostats actually have a fail on off, right? Like if it fails on the on position, it switches it off. And there's about $150 Reptile thermostats that don't do that.
Yeah. And the Inkbird one has an app. You can change it from the app and their Wi-Fi.
I just shut it off if it's overheating. You can do whatever you need to. Oh, it's a pain in the ass to get it set up, but you can.
Oh, good. I won't even try it then because I'll just throw my phone. Okay, yeah. I yell at Joel all the time. Are we cursing on this episode?
Yeah, I don't care, dude.
All right.
What do you ask? We don't
normally. Well, no, we don't normally do this. It's not our show to do that. But anyway, I don't know. I get mad all the time. I stare at the TV. I'm like, Jill, take the fucking words off the screen right now. Why do the words keep on coming up? I can't read that fucking fast. Number one. Number two, I can't see what the hell's going on.
Distracts you.
Oh my God. And she does it. My dad does it. Her dad does it when they watch our kids. So everyone in the house knows how to change the fucking words. And I got 10 TVs and I'm like, fuck this. And I'm so mad. I'm saying the F word because I'm so pissed off, bro. I hate those
I use
words.
closed captions.
Yeah, what is CC bullshit?
Yeah.
Why? And why does Netflix do it automatically every time? I got to stop my episode, and then if I push back twice, I get out of Netflix.
There. She had this set up,
bro. No, Jill's infiltrated everything. I got to ask permission to buy shit on Amazon on my account. Like, dude, do you know how many freaking email I lost my email because I just get.
What did it say when you hit buy now? It says ask mommy's permission, and then you have to hit submit.
No, it says we've sent a confirmation code to your phone number. Is this you, Charles? And it's her number. I'm like, bro. She changed our shipping address to just Amacone, so now I can't tell what she ordered.
That's genius.
She's got it figured out, but I think she's involved in a relationship with the Amazon guy. He's here 7 times a day.
Yeah. So when it comes to I can relate to that. I feel like I literally get a package like every single day here. But so we talked about temperature, we talked about range, we talked about probe placement, different type of heating setups. Let's talk about humidity real quick. Because I think humidity is one of those things that's very important for chondros. But sometimes it's often, some people confuse humidity and moisture.
I don't think humidity's talked about enough, honestly. And I don't know that I have it figured out. I know I don't have it figured out.
Yeah. I mean, humidity is important. I mean, humidity plays a role in hydration. Humidity plays a role in sheds. It plays a role in respiratory health, right? If these snakes are used to 60 to 80% humidity plus, and you are keeping them at 30 to 40%, if you do that long term, their insides of their body are going to dry up. It's going to cause respiratory issues.
Yeah, I found that that the most important thing to keep the humidity up in a green tree python's enclosure without having it just be stagnant wet in there and no airflow is to just have the largest water bowl you could possibly fit in there. That's not a guppy pond. Don't put fish in the bottom of and don't keep an adult over water in an exoterra. Just find a big, I mean, honestly, we could take this right into enclosures after if you want, because I don't have much to say about humidity.
Yeah, we'll caveat into enclosures. At least for me, I just want to say my humidity range. I generally keep it at the low end 50, and that's like when the heaters are running and I need to refill the humidifier. But generally, I keep I keep it at around 70% humidity at all times.
Yeah, I don't monitor. I have I have the hygrometer
on the gobies.
I don't even look at it. I don't think I've ever looked at it. I'll be honest. I swear to God, I've never looked at the only humidity I've ever. Oh yeah, they do have it because I check it in the egg boxes, but I've only used it in the egg boxes.
I mean, but how are you like making sure that they have it? How often are you spraying? Because I know spraying is like a really big method of keeping things humid.
Whenever I want, but whenever I want, like if it's raining outside and I'll just spray them. I'll hose them down just because the barometric pressure is lower. It's raining outside. Give them a little bit of a mist relief. But if I see them going into a shed or they look a little funny, like crinkly, which usually it's because they're going into shed, I'll spray them down for like 2-3 days, 4 days in a row. I'll hose it down in there, and then it'll take 24 hours to evaporate.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Chondros, the Chondros are kind of helping me out a little bit. I drilled the air holes a little bit lower than the actual opening, and they have a raised lid. And I feel like if there's not a seam at the lid, the humidity can get trapped if there's like another inch of sealed enclosure or container above where the actual lid is, if it's like a tub or whatever. Right. If that makes any sense. And then I just found that like a larger water bowl with a larger surface area. So like I'm just using hatchling totes, like 6-quart sterilites inside of my the Chondros, and I'm breeding in a Chondro right now.
Yeah.
That holds it pretty good. It's probably takes up 40% of the floor.
Yeah, I it sounds like you underplay humidity a little bit, like you monitor it less, where for me, like humidity is something I monitor very intensely.
Yeah, I just kind of, I don't know. I just don't
I
want to
mean,
deal
and
with it.
it's a very, so again, husbandry 101 and a little tip for you. You know that your snake is either dehydrated or you're not providing enough humidity if it gets a stuck shed, right? If it gets a stuck shed, change what you're doing humidity wise.
Or if it dies.
Or yeah, that.
I told you I wanted to make tonight fun.
Oh shit!
I got to get another beer.
Yeah, if your snake dies, you definitely want to look at your husbandry.
If it grounded itself and it's not moving anymore, you did something, wrong, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert.
Right. Exactly. But that's a pretty safe bet. I think that, yeah, as far as humidity, I don't think that we need to touch any bit more. I just want to say that you can overspray your chondros. I did it.
You can grow mold in your enclosures if you don't have the proper ventilation, and it's like overly humid in there because it's stagnant.
Yeah. So stagnant, wet is not good. Like don't spray that thing down without proper airflow. You need to have ventilation. You need to have new and fresh air coming in. There's got to be a gas exchange that's happening, especially if you're using hot spots, right? And you're using gradient type of temperature setup. It's even more important to have this gas exchange happen. So, don't overcomplicate humidity. Like Chuck said, a bigger water bowl in the bottom of the enclosure, and generally a spray once a week is fine, or just spraying when it's in shed is fine, generally speaking. Again,
I'm grabbing a beer. You want one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll grab one.
Yeah, bring me one. So yeah, just keep humidity at the forefront, but again, don't overcomplicate it. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. And overspraying is a thing. You don't want it to be wet in there constantly. If you're spraying them directly all the time, they're going to develop blisters. They can develop skin issues, scale issues. So don't do that. And he's back. Thank you.
We're drinking? What happened?
Yeah, I said thank you. You brought me my beer.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah. All right. So we wrapped up humidity. Let's go into enclosures, because that's a big part of the husbandry aspect of these animals is what we keep them in.
This is for all my viewers. Oh yeah.
You couldn't hear a single thing.
Oh, you didn't hear a crack? That's dumb. All right. Well, I guess I got to drink this one fast and crack another one for everybody. What were you saying before I interrupted?
Enclosures.
Yeah. So don't be in a rush to get this expensive animal that you just bought and throw it in some really pretty bioactive or too large of an enclosure for it. If you can't afford a PVC enclosure for a yearling because it's just a step up for maybe 18 months or something like that, you can get yourself a nice Chondro as a nice cost-effective option. They look great. You can make your own perches. There's, perch printers and cutters because they use that HDPE or whatever now. So
yep,
there's tons of options out there. If you're going to go with a tub, it's a great option. It's just not pretty. Yeah, but it'll work.
It's not sexy, but I mean, if anything, if we're talking about a husbandry 101 episode and you're getting a young snake or you're getting an animal that you need to quarantine, a tub is your safest bet. It's the easiest to be able to dial in. They're cheap,
sterile,
very easy to clean. I'm a big fan of tub setups, especially for new keepers. There's a reason why most breeders will say, hey, if you get an animal from them that's 6 to 8 months old, they're going to tell you put it into a 6-quart.
Yep. I can tell you, I'll break down my quarantine tub for everybody. This is probably, in my opinion, this is what I started out with. Everything was kept in them. And then I graduated to some nicer stuff and then some nicer stuff. But I still have my original tubs that I quarantine in them. They're great. They work. They're clean as hell. So, and they're cheap. So imagine this. You want to buy a Green Tree Python. Cost for the enclosure and equipment is going to break the bank and cut into the quality animal that you can get. So you can't spend $1,000 on an enclosure. I use a 72 quart high rise. It's spelled
High rise.
HI-RISE by Hefty. Walmart sells them. They are an opaque tote on the bottom, and the top is recessed up about an inch. They come in, it's like a bluish color, like a sky blue or whatever colored lid and latches. That is your tote. I drill 3 holes on each long side, about 3/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16. I forget which drill bit size. But then I use cheap ass knockoff Amazon command hooks, but they got to be the ones with the gel on them. It's the same gel that you like stick to your chest for like a heart monitor.
Yep.
So if it gets stuck to the snake, it's not like duct tape. It's just that jelly, like gooey stuff. It's easy. It'll come right off. It doesn't get stuck to anything. If you misplace it onto the tub, you could peel it and re-stick it like over and over again, as long as it's clean. The perches on them are sanded PVC, which are probably what, Lucas, for 23 inches or whatever of PVC, friggin' $2 a piece, $1.50 a piece.
Yeah, you can use it for like 3 tubs.
The command hooks in large packs are like $10.
Yeah. The
water bowl is a cheap ass dog bowl. The little black ones that are like plastic. But the thing is, you could just use $1.85 6-quart Sterilite tote for hatchlings.
Right.
I do not put a substrate in my quarantine enclosures at all. It's
no
bare bottom.
Bare bottom.
No paper towel, bare bottom. Because if they're quarantined, I want to see if there's any little creatures falling off of them after I've treated it. And the only way to do that is to go in there and inspect them. And I pick up all the particles with that really clear tape you get for wrapping paper. There's like the opaque tape, but I use the real clear stuff. And then I put it under my microscope and I can inspect every single thing that falls off of them.
Thorough.
Yeah. Because I mean, that sound like a D-bag. I don't know how else to say it, but when you're dealing with a collection that's worth a bit of money, you gotta be spot on, man.
Yeah, be on top of it.
One cheap mistake you make by getting a cheap import and then cleaning it out and going through all the bullshit, like you're only as strong as your weakest link. So where do you want to skimp? Right? You don't want to skimp on testing. You don't want to skimp on bringing any unwanted guests into your main collection with 30, it's right now 27 or 25 baby fucking neonates. Could you imagine if I had mites break out in that room with 25 neonate Green Tree Pythons?
Dude, I've had mites break out in a collection of 80 snakes, man. It's not fun.
Buy a freezer. Buy a big freezer. That's ridiculous. I was
able because I treat so crazy. I was able to isolate it to the only rack. It did not spread from. As a matter of fact, it didn't even spread to the snakes in the same rack above it. That's how well
that's good. That's impressive.
Treated it. Yeah. So I mean.
I'm sorry, I got off on tangent there, but
no, you're good. But generally speaking, when it comes to like tub size, we're talking about tubs first for enclosures. You have your 6-quart. You have your 6-quart for hatchlings. You have like a 16-quart that's like kind of the next size up. Then you have your Cambro tubs. That you have the Hanger 6 style that Focus Cube builds, and then you progress into like bigger tubs that.
I believe the smaller Cambro. Oh, you're frozen. I don't know if it's still recording. I'll keep on talking. Lucas is gone.
Oh, there you are.
He's back.
Okay, that was weird.
You look like Minecraft, but you are back.
No, I look good on my end. You look good on your end. Okay. So yeah, you progress through those tub sizes, and again, the benefit of tubs is you can control airflow a little bit better. They're sterile, easy to clean, super inexpensive. It allows you to invest more in a quality animal that you get. And then, once you're ready to upgrade it into its enclosure, right? I'm biased. We are biased. It's one of our sponsors with Hearland Reptiles, but he's the only person right now that's manufacturing aluminum enclosures that are literally just they're lightweight tanks. I
was toying around with it earlier with some perch mounts. I'm like, ooh, this is pretty sweet. And I'm like thinking like what I want to put in there, because it's like it's like that industrial plain look.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever go into someone's basement and they painted all the stuff in the open rafters black?
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of, like industrial. And I like it, but it's like elegant industrial.
Yeah,
it's just a clean, riveted, but it's all powder coated and nice and pretty, but it looks tough. Awesome. Yeah. And then the friggin' doors, like my wife could kill me with one of those glass doors.
Oh, they're no joke. And what I love about them is that the top and bottom are recessed. They don't have a lip, so that way the light that you're using in your room can fully come in into it. But yeah, so I like the Heartland enclosures that he's building right now. I think he has 18-inch cubes, and then he has 24 by 18 or 30 by 18 by 18s. I got one of each. They are great enclosures. And I'm the type of person, when I first started off keeping snakes, I got some of the cheaper enclosures. I went through them. They were stained. They didn't last. So I don't like spending money on cheap enclosures anymore. I'd rather just get that enclosure that's going to be able to house that snake and other snakes for its lifetime. So what are like some of the adult dimensions that you do?
Okay, so I got off on a friggin' tangent. I always do. So the adult size for my sub-adult and adult quarantine totes, the hefty high rises, are 72 quarts. I believe there's like fractions of an inch, but they're 23 by 15 by 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So they're pretty close in dimensions to, I'm breeding right now on a 26, 18, 16 Cambro with PVC purchase. Yeah. So I think it's very much an appropriately sized enclosure or quarantine tub for most like decent sized adults. Now, if you get a female that's 1,500, 2,000 grams, that's not going to work. You're probably going to have to get like 110 quart Sterilite tote, like a big, like a 48 incher, 36 incher, or whatever it is. But that, I mean, for regular PVC enclosures or, Jordan's enclosures, I think 2 foot cube's perfect for a male. It's pretty standard and probably your most cost effective if you're going with like a higher end enclosure. When you start to get into the funny sizes, I personally think like 30, 18, 18 for any adult is perfect.
Right.
Like I said, unless it's some ridiculously large female, but the males, like 2 foot cubes are perfect for them. And realistically, I don't have any females that really require a 3 foot cube other than Deep Blue, and she's in a 30, 18, 24, and it's 18 deep and 24 high. If you have the space, 3x2x2 is the best.
I have a 3x2. So my Aru right now is in a 3x2x2, but it's a mansion for her. She's not a big animal, But yeah, I mean, I think ideally 3x2x2 and 2x2x2. But a lot of breeders and keepers out there are keeping them in, again, 30 by 18 by 18s. So yeah, and you also have there's another enclosure material, PVC, right? And that's probably the most popular that's in the trade right now, like in the business. PVC is good. It insulates heat pretty decently, and you can get good airflow with custom air vents that different cage companies make. Yeah, I've kept, so in my garage right now, not with the Chondros, but I have PVC, I have ABS, and I have the aluminum, and then obviously I have like tubs. Yeah, I would say that my favorite goes the powder coated aluminum, ABS, PVC, and plastic, kind of like in that order of like favorite to least favorite.
Yeah, and I was trying to finish something, like I said, until I got on a tangent. But as far as like a full complete setup for a Green Tree Python that is acceptable and cost effective, that hefty high rise tote 72 quart is good for quarantine, or like a reasonably sized adult. With the PVC perches, no substrate, or even puppy pads, with the hatchling tote is the water bowl heating. In that, in my quarantines, I'm running 28 watt Reptile Basics heat panels, which are about $75 a piece. And then the thermostat running that is actually a 2-zone thermostat, which will run 2 of the enclosures for, I think it's like $40. So Yeah, 40, 75. What's that? It's 115 plus, $15 for the tote, 130, and then what? $15, $20 for extras. So
Yeah. So
that's not bad. Like,
no,
that's not bad at all.
Not at all. And let's talk about extras now, like interior designing of enclosures, right? Like there's obviously people that go over the top and they kind of just like clutter it out and everything. But I mean, generally speaking, again, from a husbandry 101 standpoint, in my opinion, quarantine setup's a little bit different. When they're not going to be in a tub for a long time or you're quarantining them, it's okay to have one perch in there. I would say, generally speaking, once you get to the PVC, or the aluminum enclosures, larger permanent enclosures, I would say 2 to 3 perches is what I shoot for. I did try like a live plant that was potted on the inside. It lasted about 6 to 8 months, and I haven't replaced it since it kind of just went frail.
The snake destroyed it.
Yeah, just every time I'd go in there, it'd be bent over or whatever, and so but I don't really provide any fake foliage in mine because it's just one added extra thing that can get bacterial infection. Like the bacteria can harbor on it. But I'm not set in that. Like, I definitely can play around. I don't mind getting some fake plants and things like that. And I think that it does help with security for the animals, right? Like oftentimes we'll see chondros perch at the highest perch, and not because they want to be there temp-wise, but because that's where they feel the safest.
Oh, I've said it numerous times, and that's one thing I'll stick to is using just a small bunch of 3 palm fronds or something and zip tied to the top, the side of the tote, and you just bend it over where the perches are, so that when you open the tub, they're not fully exposed. If you open the tub and there's leaves over them, even like the nastiest import Biox, sometimes they'll just be like, I'll just tuck my head. And they just look up at you and they tuck their head and they try to hide from you because they know that they're going to lose the fight to you. So
right.
I just found that go to Hobby Lobby, check out some hot MILFs and grab some fake plants. I always bring my kids to the Hobby Lobby. I tell my wife too. I'm like, dude, I get hit on by so many hot moms.
Yep. Yeah, you'd be surprised how many women like seeing a dad with girls.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
Especially at Hobby Lobby.
Yeah. Oh my God. Look at those eyes. They're so cute. I'm like, yeah, they didn't get my looks. They got my wife's looks.
Oh, that's funny, man.
I don't do it, but I told my wife I told my wife I usually follow up with God rest her soul.
Oh geez.
I don't, but it's pretty funny.
It is. I'm glad, and she probably laughs about it too. So
yeah, she's cool. Well, my wife, she's cool.
Yeah. No, she's awesome. Jill's awesome. Okay, so we talked about the interior, right? You could throw in some fake plants, 2 to 3 perches, 1 perch for the quarantine setup because you're like really administering and monitoring things. And a nice sized water bowl at the bottom, substrate, right? I see a couple there's one like puppy pads, paper, cocoa substrate. There's a list of different things that can work. There's pros and cons for each of them, right? Paper, cheap, it's easy, doesn't look pretty, doesn't hold humidity well. The diaper pads, again, affordable, doesn't like look amazing, but it gets the job done. It really retains a lot of the moisture when they pee and poop on it. Very easy to clean. One risk with that is if one of their teeth get latched onto that stuff and they start swallowing it with a meal, you're in trouble.
If you're there, it's an easy fix. Just
if you're there though.
Yeah, well, just everybody always have a pair of feeding tongs, which you already will have because you're feeding your snake, available. And then just have a small bottle, like pick yourself up a nice bottle of like 70 to 90% alcohol, like isopropyl alcohol for decontamination purposes. I have a bottle that I just like, it's like I just put the tongs in it and I'll soak them for like a few minutes. I'll take them out and I'll let them drip dry. But if a snake does grab onto you or something you don't want it to eat, like a fake plant or the puppy pad, just dip your feeding tongs in that, that isopropyl alcohol. Don't have it like dripping like crazy, but just get one drop, put it right in the corner of its mouth, the pink part, while it's got whatever it is wrapped up. Dude, that thing will back out faster than you can blink in an instant. It's like a button. You just put a little alcohol right in their mouth, or if you don't have that available, a little tiny, tiny dab of hand sanitizer on the tip of those tongs and put them in the corner of the mouth. Watch how quick it drops that prey at them. It'll still have it wrapped, but it'll take its mouth off of it.
No, it does. It does the trick. I mean, I use brown Listerine as a disinfectant, and that does the trick as well.
Yeah,
but
alcohol. It just burns them. It's just an undesirable sensation that they do not like at all. I did that the other day with my male. I thaw my mice out in cool water now because of your suggestion, or warm water, not piping hot. And I didn't dump the water out and refresh it before I fed him. And I felt the second mouse. I'm like, oh my God, that's not warm. Shit. And my Christoph, the Matacari male, was wrapped up with it. I was like, shit. So I dipped a little alcohol, put it right in the freaking corner of his mouth. He ripped his face off of it. So he's cool. Like he won't like F me up. So I was able to like get him off and then get the mouse out. And then I gave him a warm mouse and he ate it right away. So,
but was it just cool because of the water, or was it not?
Yeah. But you know me, I'm messed up in the head. I was like panicking. I was like, oh my God, everything I worked for. I was like, you built everything.
Dude, it's funny when you feed so many animals and everything, you got the feel like for the rodents, like, the feeling, you gotta feel around and see if there's, you feel the heart, you feel up by the chest.
It's a skill I wish I didn't have.
Right. Didn't know. Right. But like,
I would.
Being able to go through the internal organs on the outside to make sure they're thawed out.
Dude, you're going to laugh. Did you ever take your rodents out to see if they were defrosted to use your heat gun? Did you ever put it on the chest? And
I haven't done it yet.
You can. So sometimes if I'm in a rush, I'll feel it. And if it's a little cold, I'll dip it back in the water and I'll get the FLIR and I'll FLIR it real quick. And if you could see it, like if there's still internally, if they're still frozen, there'll just be that blue dot starts popping up.
Good to know.
Or purple, depending on which filter you're using. But yeah, I use it for.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's neat.
That's pretty damn cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's wrap up with just talking about extra tools, right? Because you were just talking about your $7,000 flare gun.
I was just thinking about that. So, listen, I could talk all the shit I want, or Lucas could talk all the shit he wants. The E-Tech Cities off Amazon is better than that.
They're good. They're good.
It's better than having nothing.
They're fine. For the price that you're paying and everything, all I would recommend is if you're going to save money, get a $15 temp gun, get 2 or 3 of them. And just make sure that you're double checking the work that each of them are doing.
Yep. If you have a Green Tree extras, I mean, if you're just keeping and not breeding extras, you have to have a tweezer set on hand. Buy yourself a headlamp, cheapo, something you could perform a procedure on an animal and have a light right there like a surgeon.
Yeah.
Rubber gloves, obviously. Yeah. Sanitizers, have alcohol, have Q-tips,
have a snake hook.
Medications, normal medications. Panicure, you can go buy goat dewormer from Tractor Supply. Do not say that I said you could just treat your Green Tree with goat dewormer. It's the same thing. If you look at the exact medication and the ingredients in it, make sure you know what the concentration of the suspension is, then know what your dosage is, and then go to a dosage chart and consult with a professional who knows exactly how to do dosages, because I always get my dosage reversed for some reason. But check with your vet. My vet told me my vet told me what I can use. I still don't use the goat dewormer from Tractor Supply, but it is the same stuff. It's got a much higher concentration. It's double the concentration what I have. And when you're treating animals that are so small, like I treat, I'm already given a tiny, tiny dose. And I've already thought about like putting water in it or something, because I feel like it's so small that a 1 ml hypodermic syringe, like the little bit that I'm losing in the actual tip of the needle, I'm like, dude, that's like 10%, 20% of my dosage. Like, it's so small. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what happens when you get extra concentrated medication. But I feel like when it comes to, get a sprayer, man, and I recommend like an electric sprayer.
Yes,
Like
you got to get a sprayer. And
the electric
quality.
sprayer.
Water quality is a big thing.
Yeah.
Watch how your animals urate and defecate. That's one of the things that really, like, I'm not even 10% figured out yet on water quality, because I'm having urates that are coming out, and if I crumble them up in my hand, they look like sand from the beach, and then they get stuck and my animals get backed up. But I'm shooting. That's another thing. Have a 10 ml or a 40 ml syringe without a hypodermic needle on it. Something you would inject your barbecue with, like not stainless steel, but plastic, and have that on hand just in case you need to do some sort of an enema on the snake. If you want to shoot some water up its butt to hydrate it, or get it to clear out some, if it's backed up with poops or something like that, and soak in and rain chamber in and shower and hosing ain't working.
I feel like this is definitely like husbandry 103 right now.
No, I feel like having this on hand is 101. Using it is 103.
Okay, that's fair.
You have to have it on hand, because something that comes in 7 days from Amazon or 4 days from Amazon isn't going to help you right then. Now you're running around. Where the hell are you going to buy at a brick and mortar hypodermic syringes without a prescription?
Yeah, you're not.
You're not. So spend the $15 and have spend as much as you can afford to have as many medical supplies as you possibly need. You need little tiny scissors, like cuticle scissors. They're $2, $4, $5. Put them in the pack. You're not cutting eggs, but you might have to cut something on the animal, or you might get a scalpel or a sterile knife and needles and just simple shit. I don't know. I don't know how to explain. I have so much
He's
shit.
talking about needles, knives, simple shit.
Stuff. It's simple shit, like cheap stuff from Amazon you could throw into a little tiny.
Listen, I'm gonna say this again as a disclaimer. Chuck does all of this stuff under the guidance and the direction of a vet.
Super glue. I have super glue.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and in your forceps, your tongs, make sure they're not the one with the pointy metal tips.
Yeah.
Oh man. Dude, you.
Yeah.
How's that snake doing, by the way?
It just took another meal on its own. It's eating better than 5 or 6 of its siblings.
Awesome. Good.
Can't even tell. It doesn't even know it's hurt. I'm just giving it much smaller prey items. I'm not pushing it. The other ones I switched. I think all 15 out of the 16 feeds took fuzzies today. Yesterday. So
okay, good. All right, real quick to wrap up. Keep it simple, stupid. Right, like that's the thing with chondros, especially if you want to be successful early on. Don't do too much. Don't overlove the animal. Keep that humidity 60-80%. Keep the temperature at 84. Hot spot, 70s cool side.
Set it and forget it.
Forget it. Yeah, don't. Yeah.
Set it and forget. Monitor the shit out of it. Run that new enclosure for weeks upon weeks. That thing should be solid. You should know what that enclosure in the room that you're keeping it is going to do realistically, ideally, which is not completely realistic, but ideally you should know what it's going to do when it's the coldest day of the year and the hottest day of the year in the room that it's in, and know how your equipment's going to adapt to it. Exactly. Because some of these rooms will go from 60 to 85 depending on the season. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So have a means to cool that room down more so than heat it up, because if it's in your house, it's probably not going to get to devastating levels within reason, but you got to monitor that shit. Have the gobies in the room, in the enclosure, on the hot side, on the cold side. You should write everything down. You shouldn't rush into getting them, because you're going to rush into failing and losing a lot of money. Because if you're buying it and doing it the right way, this is an investment. It's not a purchase.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Just be thorough prior to getting the animal. And, we can even talk, we'll come up with some other basic husbandry stuff and go more into detail about the different things we touched on. But Chuck, you got anything else before we wrap up?
Husbandry 101 wrap up. They're a living creature. They're an animal. It's not an item.
Yeah.
So if you're spending a lot of money on it, and then you're not going to spend a lot of money on what you keep it in, that's a bad way to. Excuse me. If you're not going to keep it correctly, you don't have to spend a lot of money to keep it, but keep it correctly because they are a living creature and they ain't the hardiest animals in the world when it comes to mess ups. There's not a lot of wiggle room. So set it up perfect, get it rocking and rolling, write all your numbers down, run them through somebody who keeps them all the time or breeds them, make sure all your parameters are correct, and then you're probably ready.
Yeah.
But make sure you have everything before you get the animal. Don't buy a snake in a deli cup at a show and take it home and say, oh, I'll figure this out.
Yeah. And the best way to understand what the species needs is also reading books that describes what they come from in the wild, right? Understand their natural history, where they're from, and that stuff you can geek out later down the road and everything, but just be prepared. I like ending on that one.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Don't do too much.
Yeah. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks on episode 17 of the Chondro Line.
Y'all take care.